Good afternoon, New Brunswick, and welcome to Friday's update on Hurricane Lee for the province. Today we will be hearing from Premier Higgs, Public Safety Minister Chris Austin, as well as representatives from both EMO and NB Power. So things have obviously changed over the course of the last 24 hours since his last update. It looks like Hurricane Lee could be moving a bit more east than anticipated. That doesn't mean places like Grand Manan still aren't really in the direct line of the hurricane, as well as coastal Charlotte County. So a lot, I imagine, will be addressed today in the conference, which starts at 2:30. So we thought we'd just get started here a few minutes early just to hear from viewers at home what kind of questions you might have. I'm just logging into Facebook right now so that I can follow along with you as this conference goes on. If you remember from days of COVID-19 updates, we interacted with you online as this was going on. And we want to say hello to people watching at home as well on your television. Very old school. We still love our TV viewers. So if I am posting something important on Facebook, as I mentioned yesterday, I am also sharing that information on our notice on television that you will see after this conference on our TV. Anything that, for instance, the website we shared yesterday that the province launched to provide up-to-date information on Hurricane Lee. I have that website listed on the television screen along the bottom that's airing pretty much all day long as well. Again, you can check for that going into tomorrow as well as Sunday in terms of finding whatever relevant information the province would like to share in terms of where the storm's going, what critical information that you also might need to know at any given point during the hurricane. And if you have questions that you'd like me to ask in today's conference, please feel free to share along in the comments and questions section of the Facebook feed if you are online. Now, what we are expecting to hear today, obviously there'll be an update on where the storm is exactly expected to hit. What we do know at this point in time is that Hurricane Lee seems to be looking like it will be a strong tropical storm when it gets to New Brunswick on the weekend. But that doesn't mean that there isn't reason of concern for everyone, especially those who live in coastal areas at this point in time. I know that the town of St. Andrews this morning has been taking down a lot of signage in the community, and I imagine that's going on in communities all around New Brunswick at this point in time as we get ready for the storm. I'm sure there'll be even more up-to-date advice today provided on how to get your home ready for this storm. Things like lawn furniture that we all still have out. It's still been really beautiful even today. I know it's hard to believe a storm is coming when it's as sunny and beautiful as it is outside, but it really is the calm before the storm. So again, things like bringing your lawn furniture inside are important to take care of in the day and hours leading up to the storm that will be here as of late tomorrow evening and into Sunday morning. Again, I am looking online to see if anyone has any questions at this point in time, and I'll mute my computer. I have a feeling it will be a full house of journalists. Premier Higgs, obviously, anyone who follows us on Facebook will know that he announced that he is reoffering for the next, for another term as Premier. So there might be questions from journalists that have to do with his political future as well. We hope, however, that it does stick to questions about Hurricane Lee as we go into the conference today. Again, if you are just joining us online or on television today, in today's hurricane update, we will be hearing from Premier Higgs as well as Public Safety Minister Chris Austin, as well as representatives from Emergency Measures Organization and NB Power. I might have to do a roll call here, so I have my phone open to see what's happening in terms of how many journalists will be joining us. It looks like it is a full house, so it's potentially just a matter of one question or so that we will be able to ask in today's conference. So if you do have something that is of the utmost concern for you, again, please feel free to share those thoughts and concerns on Facebook, where I am about to make sure that we're sharing the Facebook feed in a number of groups as well. So here we go, Graham and Ann. We're a small team here. It's just Flo and me at the office right now. So there we go. make sure we're getting that out to our viewers at home. So questions that we are considering asking today. Obviously, we're based here in Southwest New Brunswick, so we have a lot of focus on what's happening in coastal Southwest New Brunswick. In particular, our viewers in Grand Manan, we know that you will be experiencing quite a lot of activity this weekend, so we wonder if there are perhaps even more guidelines that the government might have in place for island residents, especially people who might be considered more vulnerable or have health issues going into the weekend, what that means. So again, Hurricane Lee is expected to be what they call a post-tropical storm when it gets to New Brunswick, but again, these things can change in a matter of hours and minutes. That there's a different forecast altogether. So what we hope is that you're following regularly and making sure you stay up to date with the direction of the storm and what we have in store for the weekend. We're expecting at this point in time wind gusts that could exceed 100 kilometers an hour. I know Mayor Brad Henderson from St. Andrews was in here this morning, and he said it looked like it could be more like 75 kilometers per hour. Lots of rain, and also Mayor Henderson provided some advice that applies not just to residents of Charlotte County, but also residents all across New Brunswick. So please feel free. It's on my Facebook page and airing on television regularly as well in a special news time slot to get updates from Mayor Henderson on how to prepare for the storm in the coastal areas. And he also provided some insight on how the town is preparing for things like closing the wharf and also removing signage that could be hazardous when the winds get extreme this weekend. So again, I'm following online. I know it's been a while since we've done regular updates, live updates with the province. So we're all sort of out of routine that we were in during the pandemic, but I will be watching what your comments are to see what questions and concerns you might have that I could potentially bring into the conference today with the Premier and again, Minister Austin, EMO, and NB Power. So some of the questions that came in over the last 24 hours that I can share with you. A lot of people are wondering if there will be things like restrictions on when and where you can drive. At this point in time, I don't know to what degree they're closing roads down or if they are at all. Things that could be more pertinent to people who live in coastal areas, or whether or not certain wharfs will be closed, if there are any restrictions on people in terms of going to boats or fishermen who work in obviously the fishing industry, what that means for people's livelihood this weekend. We're expecting a lot of new advice today, and obviously there are quite a number of journalists joining us. Tends to be the case when the Premier does come to the conferences. So again, yesterday, if you joined us for the conference, they did provide a lot of advice on how to secure your home for the hurricane, and as well to get your yard and your supplies ready. There is a checklist that I've shared on my Facebook page this morning. Again, Vicki Hogarth is where we're sharing information that we would have normally posted on CHCO television prior to the Meta News Block in response to Bill C-18. So all the information we used to share is now on my personal page, and we are doing that until we are able to operate our Facebook page once again. So things that I'm sharing there, a checklist. That has to do with, the government checklist says that you should have 2 liters of water per person per day as part of hurricane guidelines. Non-perishable food, things we don't think about when we are not living in strange weather times, are to have a manual can opener. Things that don't require electricity, as well as to have, if you can, get some cash out at the bank machine in case there are power outages, and also to fill up on gas if you can today. Things like candles, flashlights. Luckily, it seems to be fairly warm out, so in terms of worrying about heating and things like that, that's not really the position we're in at this point in time. But the checklist is on my page. Things like first aid kits, just know where things are in case there is a power outage too. It's nice to know that you've got all that stuff done ahead of time, and hopefully you won't need to use it, but it's always great to be prepared. Now again, if you're just joining us now, it is 2:32. We tend to know, those of you who joined us regularly for COVID-19 updates, that when the Premier is a part of the conferences, that doesn't mean that we always start exactly on time. So we will be waiting here till we see a feed from Fredericton, and then we'll go straight into the news conference. And if you do have questions that you would like me to ask on your behalf, please share them in the comment section on Facebook if you are watching on Facebook, and I will be sure to take those into consideration and ask a question or two, depending on the number of journalists that are involved today. How many questions we will get will depend on how many people participate. So again, if we're lucky, it's two. It tends to be one question when it's a big news conference. So I would imagine at this point in time it will be one question. So I'll do my best to ask something that pertains to the coastal area and how to prepare for it, for the hurricane. So let's go back again and take a look at what some of your questions are as we wait for Premier Higgs, Chris Austin, EMO, and MB Power to join us in Fredericton for the conference. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of what we know about the hurricane at this point in time. It's about 400 kilometers north of Bermuda today, Friday, September 15th. And Mayor Henderson said this morning that the winds are looking at around 75 kilometers per hour at this point in time. They've been projected to be between there and about 100 kilometers per hour. So it will be a very, very windy weekend. Now, anyone who lives in southwest New Brunswick knows it's quite beautiful out right now. So it really does feel like we are in the eye of the storm, which makes it hard to believe of what's in store, what we know is coming. But again, oftentimes right before a storm, this is the kind of weather that we are surprised with. So I know it looks beautiful out today, but we are preparing for much stronger winds, a lot of rain, and really trying to figure out what's the best approach for being prepared for this weekend. Now it's going to transition from what is a Category 1 hurricane to a strong, what's called a post-tropical storm. That doesn't mean it isn't of concern, especially in a coastal region where there can be quite a large surge and flooding. So what we did know today, though, that we didn't know yesterday, is that it's moved a bit east, so they are putting alerts out now for Nova Scotia, places like Halifax to be on alert as well for the weather that is to come. Again, I'm starting to follow questions here on Facebook, so please feel, Sandra is wondering what direction will the wind be. I can't seem to find that information. It's a good question, Sandra. I think a lot what we want to learn today will be about the specifics. As we get closer to this storm actually hitting New Brunswick, that's when they can be a little bit more specific about the details. Up until now, it's been a little bit of projections that can change, and as we see today, they are changing as of yesterday. They have Nova Scotia, again, under more of alert than they were before. So I can take a look at some of the questions that you have sent in, and again, if you're watching on television and not on Facebook, I know not everyone is on Facebook, you can send questions to us in case there is another news conference, or if you just want us to find answers for questions, two questions for you, send an email. The easiest one to remember is news@chco.tv. And that goes to everyone on the news team, so Flo, Patrick, and myself. Or if you want to send one specifically to me, it's just my name, Vicky.Hogarth. It's on the screen right now, so VICKI.Hogarth, HOGARTH @CHCO.TV. So if you're not on Facebook, you can still send in your questions, and we will do our best to get some answers for you. You can hear I have my phone open here, and that is how we will be asking our questions today to Fredericton. We have Microsoft Teams open on my phone, and we have a video feed in the back production room, so that once we do go into the conference, you will see Premier Higgs, Chris Austin, and EMO and New Brunswick Power answering your questions. So again, we are running a little late, it looks like, on the Fredericton side of things. It's 2:36 right now. So as soon as we do have acknowledgement that they are in the conference room, we'll head right into the conference, and you will get to see Premier Higgs, Chris Austin, EMO, and New Brunswick Power answer questions from journalists. But I imagine they will begin the conference delivering an overview of what they know as of now. So that should be hopefully momentarily. But again, we have found in the past, I think all of you who stuck with us throughout COVID-19 know that sometimes when the Premier joins us, we can get started a few moments late. So that gives us more time to talk with one another. So if you do have questions or concerns, I'm looking down at my computer right now to see what's being written in. Phil is wondering, is Hurricane Lee a lesser threat than last year's Hurricane Fiona? And Phil, it's a really good question, because sometimes the best way to know what to expect is to compare to past storms that are in recent memory, to know how we've responded before and what we can expect. From what I understand, from what I've read, Phil, this isn't going to be as strong as Hurricane Fiona, but again, it's still quite early, and I don't think until it's really the hours before we can know the full extent of what we are going to experience. But again, a good question, and a great question for meteorologists as well, is just how they can compare it to other storms we've had in the past so that we can get an idea of what we're about to live through. I'm just going to take a look and scroll, since we seem to have a lot of time, what else you are wondering, and what other information I can help get for you today. Again, we appreciate everyone that is watching with us on television or on Facebook. We've been doing our best in this weird time to find ways to reach you when it comes to getting immediate news out. TV is always the way, but for CHCO, I know a lot of our viewers don't live necessarily in Charlotte County, and if you don't live in Charlotte County, then you need to have Bell to watch us on television. But if you do have CHCO in your homes, what you're seeing streamed on Facebook right now on my personal page is also live on our television channel. So Facebook was always a workaround for us in terms of reaching people who didn't necessarily have CHCO in their channel lineup in their homes. So that is why we have been using my Facebook page for the time being to reach people. We were obviously very active on Facebook before that too, so it wasn't just about videos. That's where we could share information about things like storms. In June, when we had the fires in Boquebec and Shamcook, that was another way we could reach people with more than just video, but information. So for now, at this time, when we're living through Hurricane Lee, we are currently using my Facebook page for up-to-date information that we are sharing with you. Again, not just shows, videos, and updates with leaders, municipal and provincial, but also any information that we will find that would best serve the public, such as the website that the province launched yesterday. It's part of GNB's regular website. It's just a subsection of GNB's website dedicated to Hurricane Lee, and what you'll find there, we've been sharing that on our television screen as well for those who don't have Facebook. What you'll find there is an overview of the latest projections for where the storm is and the details of what they know at the current moment in time, as well as information like checklists, how to best prepare for the storm. Now, one of the questions that has been sent in, I do hear some action in the conference room on my phone, so I am paying attention to that too. One of the questions that someone sent in that is obviously interesting is, we're going to be living through this storm Saturday, Sunday, but oftentimes, the harder part of living through storms is the aftermath. So what plan in place does the government have for recovery and potential cleanup? Obviously, with storms like this, that could mean power lines down, lots of trees down. The damage that can be done, as we saw in Nova Scotia last year, can be quite significant. So hopefully there's a proactive plan in place for how to deal with the aftermath of this storm. Now, I know proactive planning for this kind of thing is removing signage, anything you can that we're seeing done on a really local level here in St. Andrews today, where we are based, is we see the town crew out. They've been out nonstop for the past 2 days, just removing anything they can that could potentially be a hazard in the storm. So small towns, we do have a really wonderful dedicated crew. So sometimes it's nice to just take a moment to acknowledge that and to thank those people in our community that work so hard to keep everything as safe and as organized as we can in a very chaotic time. I'm looking down at my phone right now just to see how many journalists we have.
Good afternoon, everyone.
we are about to start the news conference. So again, we should be going into the conference room in about 1 minute. It takes a minute from when I'm in the conference room on Microsoft Teams to head to the conference room on video. So we should be starting shortly, and I will see you after the news conference.
And welcome to today's update on Hurricane Lee. Bon après-midi à tous et bienvenue à cette mise à jour concernant l'ouragan Lee. This afternoon, speakers in the following order. Kyle Levitt, Director of New Brunswick Emergency Measures Organization. Pete Lucier, Operations Manager, New Brunswick Emergency Measures Organization. Nicole Poirier, Vice President, Operations MB Power. The Honorable Chris Austin, Minister of Public Safety. And the Honorable Blaine Higgs, Premier of New Brunswick. Les porte-paroles aujourd'hui dans l'ordre suivant sont le directeur de l'Organisation des mesures d'urgence du Nouveau-Brunswick, Kyle Levitt, le gestionnaire des opérations de l'Organisation des mesures d'urgence du Nouveau-Brunswick, M. Pete Lucier, la vice-présidente d'opération d'énergie Nouveau-Brunswick, Mlle Nicole Poirier, le ministre de la Sécurité publique, l'Honorable Chris Austin, et le Premier ministre du Nouveau-Brunswick, l'Honorable Blaine Higgs. Avant de céder la parole au directeur Levitt, voulez-vous assurer de désactiver le son de vos micros? Before I turn things over to Director Levitt, I would ask everyone to ensure their microphones are placed on mute. Director Levitt.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thank you all for coming. Hurricane Lee should make landfall in the Maritimes within the next 24 hours. Regardless of where it lands, New Brunswickers need to be prepared. The forecast is calling for gusts up to 120 kilometers per hour and up to 120 millimeters of rain in some areas. Grand Manan and coastal Charlotte County region could bear the brunt of this storm. 4 to 6 meter waves can be expected, and storm surge is a possibility. Saturday could be late to clean up your yard, gutters, buy supplies, or prepare for a 72-hour preparedness kit, or get gas. So please take the time now to do so. Power outages are common among storms like this. If you have a generator, now is the time to make sure that it's in working order. And if you're a new generator owner, now is the time to make sure you know how to properly use it safely. Your actions during the storm are as important as the preparation for it. Once the storm starts, remember, please stay at home if at all possible. Nothing good can come from checking out the big waves and how strong the wind truly is. Not only are you putting yourselves at risk, but you are putting the lives of the emergency services personnel who may have to assist you. Hurricane Lee may bring hazardous driving conditions. Limit your travel to essential purposes in areas of risk and adjust your driving to the road weather conditions. Do the smart thing. Stay home and follow the storm online. The province of New Brunswick has created a web page that has all kinds of useful information, and the URL is gnb.ca/hurricane. Lastly, I would like to thank all of the New Brunswick residents, businesses, municipal governments, and our partners in getting ready for this event. You're playing an essential role in keeping people safe. Thank you very much.
Bonjour.
Good day.
Touché.
The hurricane should hit within the next 24 hours. Regardless of where it lands, New Brunswickers should be prepared. The forecast is calling for gusts of up to 100 kilometers per hour and 100 millimeters of rain in some areas. Grand Manan and coastal Charlotte County region could bear the brunt of the storm. 4 to 6 meter waves are expected, and storm surge is a possibility. Saturday could be too late to clean up your yard, check gutters, buy supplies for a 72-hour preparedness kit, and get gas. Power outages are common during storms like this one. If you have a generator, now is the time to make sure it is in working order. And if you're a new generator owner, now is the time to make sure you know how to use it safely. Your actions during a storm are as important as preparation before it. Once the storm starts, stay home. Nothing good can come from checking how big the waves are or how strong the wind is. Not only are you putting yourself at risk, but you could be putting the lives of emergency responders at risk. Hurricane Lee may bring hazardous driving conditions. Limit travel to essential purposes in areas at risk, and adjust driving to road and weather conditions. Do the smart thing. Stay home and follow the storm online. The province of New Brunswick has created a web page that has all kinds of useful and essential information. gnb.ca/hurricane. Lastly, I'd like to thank New Brunswickers, businesses, municipal governments, and our partners for getting ready. You're playing an essential role in keeping people safe. Thank you.
Actively preparing for the impacts of Hurricane Lee. We are anticipating outages and are ready to respond. Our Emergency Operations Center is now open, and we have over 700 individuals ready to support restoration. These resources include powerline technicians from MB Power and from other private organizations, damage assessors, logistics staff, customer care staff, and many more working in the shadows. They are being positioned in strategic locations in the province to respond safely and efficiently when outages occur. We are in contact with provincial emergency response partners and our neighboring utility partners and continue to coordinate response. We are also aware that the trees are currently in full foliage, and the saturated ground conditions increases the likelihood of trees falling. Knowing this, we have certified utility arborists prepared and on standby to assist our line workers in accessing our infrastructure and our lines. To reemphasize what my colleagues have already stated, New Brunswickers should also be prepared. Follow New Brunswick EMO's advice and recommendations, and do not take undue risk. Follow MB Power on our social media channels, as we will continue to share updates on the situation as it progresses. If outages happen, make sure to report them either online or by calling our customer care number. Storm preparation is something that MB Power works on year-round. We have learned from past experiences and are always improving our response and our grid's reliability. This includes proactive vegetation management, like widening our right-of-ways, strengthening our system in key areas, and using new tools to support our teams in restoration efforts. Finally, safety is the heart at everything we do. We are committed to responding both effectively and safely to any challenges that may arise in the days ahead. As soon as conditions are safe, our teams will be in the field to begin restoration efforts. Pour finir, la sécurité est au cœur.
Security is at the heart of everything we do. We commit to respond in an efficient and safe way to all challenges over the next few days. When conditions will be stable, our teams will be on the ground to start restoration. Please be safe.
Good afternoon, fellow New Brunswickers. As you heard here today, I want to reiterate the importance of following the recommendations of our great team here at EMO and the work that's been done really since Monday in relation to this storm that is now going to be bearing down upon us shortly. I do want to thank the team that we have here. EMO has done a great job, Kyle, Pete, and the whole crew, as well as NB Power for their quick get readiness in relation to the storm that's coming. Nicole, thank you for being here today and updating us on NB Power, and of course for the Premier for his steadfast support all along as we prepare for this event. As I said yesterday, I think it's very important that we don't underestimate what this could be. I again just look back to the recent history of the storms that we have had here in New Brunswick and the impact they've had on all of our lives. Dorian, Fiona, and even a few years back with Arthur. I know people were without power for, up to 2 weeks and even longer. So be ready. And I noticed today that people are going out to the stores, getting some necessities and supplies, which to me is a good sign. It means people are preparing and taking this serious, which is important. So I want to encourage New Brunswickers to continue to do that. And please, please, please do not underestimate what the storm could be, especially in relation to potential power outages. Of course, as Kyle said, make sure you have your 72-hour emergency kit, food, water, batteries, portable radio, your medications. Not a bad idea to have some cash on hand if needed during that time. And always think, too, with food safety in mind, with power outages, with refrigeration, and to ensure that, your food doesn't go bad. Do not put yourself in danger by heading to the coastline. We heard earlier today that the coastal areas could see winds of up to 120 kilometers an hour. That is significant, and that can be very, very dangerous. So now is not the time to sightsee. Sit at home, check your phone, watch the event unfold in a safe place, because you don't only put yourself at risk, but you may put first responders at risk trying to help you in a worst case scenario. So please stay away from the coast during this event. Again, I want to just reiterate my appreciation to the team, and I feel very confident that they are fully prepared for this event, and for NB Power as well. And I know we have Jill here as well from Environment Canada. So again, don't underestimate, be prepared, and I believe New Brunswickers are taking this serious, so I'm encouraged to see that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour. You can see by the support that we have here today how seriously we're taking this event. We don't want to look back and think, well, could have we done something else? Could have we done something more? We can always do as much as we possibly can, and if we don't need it, well, okay. But let's not take any chances. I want to thank the New Brunswick Emergency Measures Organization, NB Power, telecommunication companies, and all other critical infrastructure partners who are working hard to minimize the damage that may come from this storm. I know that today it's easy to look outside and think that, well, we may avoid the worst of this storm. But as you've heard the experts talk about here, about what is potentially going to happen, we cannot stress enough that this is a calm before the eventual storm, and that now is a time to get prepared, but that time is running out. As my colleague says, ensure you have enough supplies, food, water, medications for at least 72 hours. While we expect the bulk of the bad weather to hit tomorrow and Sunday, that doesn't mean that everything will happen during that time period. I want to remind all New Brunswickers how important it is to be prepared and listen to officials for the latest information and advice as it becomes available. Comme c'est le cas pour toutes les tempêtes.
As it is the case for all major storms, let's hope that everything will go well and be ready for the worst.
Continue to monitor the various resources available and stay up to date. Follow the New Brunswick Emergency Measures Organization Facebook and Twitter accounts. Visit EMO's website at gnb.ca/EMO or call 511 for any road closure information. S'il vous plaît, tenez-vous informés et demeurez en sécurité.
Please get informed and remain safe.
Sure, we are ready to handle the urgent situations that may come out of the storm and any cleanup that is required after it happens. Our 12 regional EMO offices are ready to work with the local authorities in those areas as needed. And we have a backup communication system in place to make sure people can stay informed. But, and I can't say this enough, we need New Brunswickers and visitors to our province to do their part. Be prepared and keep themselves as safe as possible. Do not put yourselves in harm's way. And caution others, certainly, to do the same. In addition to getting ready for this storm, I know people are concerned about the fire at the American Iron and Metal Ames Scrapyard in St. John. Right now, the focus continues to be to completely extinguish the fire and ensuring everyone's safety. I know people are angry and want answers about what happened and how it could happen. And I want to reiterate what I said last night. There will be a full investigation into this fire, and there will be no consideration of resumption of operations until we have more information about what took place and what can be done in the future to ensure this facility can indeed operate safely. So we will not leave any stone unturned to understand what is required. As we head into the weekend, I want to remind everyone one more time, take whatever precautions you can to prepare and to keep yourself safe. We've seen it before. This is a time when the Brunswickers come together to check on loved ones, check on that elderly person who may be living alone, stay connected. They may be just down the street, but they can't get in touch with you. They may be a mile or two down the road in a rural community, but they aren't able to connect. So take care of each other, as we've always done in times of crisis. We can get through this, and we can minimize the damage to ourselves and others, but we need to be cognizant of the reality and the potential that this storm is bringing upon us. Thank you. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Premier Ministre. Thank you, Premier. Je tiens à remercier tous les conférenciers. I'd like to thank all our podium speakers. Before I proceed with questions from members of the media, I'd like to notify everyone that Jill Maypia, warning preparedness meteorologist with environment and climate change, is here in the room with us to answer any of your questions. Avant de passer aux questions des membres des médias, j'aimerais vous informer que Jill Maypia, météorologue de sensibilisation à alerte environnement et changement climatique Canada, est dans la salle pour répondre à des questions. We will be starting off first with Hurricane Lee questions, and then after that we could rotate for any other subjects. Nous répondons aux questions relatives à l'ouragan Lee, puis après on peut circuler ensuite à reprendre à d'autres sujets. We're going to start with Allison Sampson from CTV.
My question's for MB Power. Just wondering, I know you mentioned you have crews prepared. Can you tell me, I know you mentioned how many, but just so that I have it all succinct, how many crews and where exactly have you stationed them at this time?
Yes, thank you very much. I apologize that I don't have the exact numbers of the crews and the exact locations for them at this time. I do know that talking with all the telecommunication providers, also with other stakeholders, that they have assured us that the crews are ready and they are actually staging within their guidelines. So, if there's further questions on that, I'd be great to answer that at a separate time.
Mr. Poirier, if you want to answer.
Thank you. So we have approximately 300 crews. We're basically staging them in the southern part of the province where we see the most potential damage occurring. So in the St. John, in the Funday Isles, those areas specifically. So hopefully that helps you.
And just what advice would you have specifically from MB Power about what should people do when they lose power tomorrow? Do you have any specific advice for them from your perspective?
I think the primary thing was to make sure that we know. So to give us a call or to actually log in their outage on the online website. So that would be critical, and obviously being prepared with their 72-hour kits. So ensuring that they have the ability to, have food and water and all those things with regards to the outage if it does happen to go beyond 72 hours or 72 hours.
Just to keep going for one quick more thing. What should the expectation be for power restoration when you have crews in those areas already?
I can't really answer that question because it's really hard depending on the damage. So we really have to wait until we see what the damage assessors would tell us after the storm actually goes through, and then we could make that determination.
Before we pass on, I forgot to say that each reporter will have one question and a quick follow-up. You do have the right to pose your question in the official language of your choice. Chaque journaliste aura une question.
So each reporter can ask one question and a quick follow-up question. You will always have the right to ask your questions in the official language of your choice.
My question, I guess, is for both NB Power and for public safety, but is there any difference in your preparation approach this time compared to instances like Arthur and Fiona when we saw a lot of damage? Has there been any change in the approach based on what you learned through that?
Thank you, Savannah, for that question. One thing about EMO is they're very well prepared in terms of the process. While each disaster is a little bit different, the methodology that EMO uses really is very consistent, and they have those high standards to ensure that they react appropriately to depending on the severity of the incident. So I wouldn't say it changes a whole lot. I don't know, Kyle, if you can add anything to that, but I think EMO does a great job, the team, and both in preparing and then, when the incident happens in trying to mitigate the effects of the incident. So the process is pretty much the same.
I guess also NB Power. I guess anything to make sure that things are restored maybe faster, or that things are restored?
No, I would say, from every storm, we actually take those learnings. We always do a lessons learned after each event, and whatever learnings that we have, we try and improve for future events. So, but pretty much the process is very standard, and we follow very closely with EMO, and so, yeah.
Thank you. Quick one.
I guess I'm just wondering, for the Premier, probably, we don't want to look back, or we don't want to be looking back and think we could have been doing more. I guess, could you just speak to maybe some of the steps that have already been taken and why, I guess, certain things you might want to emphasize ahead of this weekend so that folks are taking the right steps?
Thank you for the question, Sven. I think that what you're seeing here, as I indicated at the beginning, is the magnitude of this very presentation about the seriousness we're taking of this event. The messaging has gone out this week, and as we learn more about the tracking and where it's going to end up and the widespread of the impacts. So even though it seems to be tracking a little bit further away from Nova Scotia, it's going to hit the Charlotte region and the shoreline of Bay of Fundy hard. And we're going to see a broad rain, heavy rain, pockets of heavy rain throughout the entire province. So we were asking people not to look at it and say the track's a little different. Look how wide it is, and that track basically shows a range of where it could go. But it very much indicates that anywhere in the province could get hit hard. Yes, it does look to be more in the southern region, southwestern region, but it's going to cross the province and hit in the eastern shore as well as it crosses. So I think that we just are telling people, you may think you're going to miss it. Don't plan on missing it. We've seen strategic downpours in our province like we hadn't seen before. I think of the Northwest and the Edmonton heavy rains and washing out bridges. So we know that these pockets of downpours, and we're seeing today, and I think this latest that I heard today was in relation to the size of the potential downpour, like 100 millimeters or something in that range. So that has gone up, what I've seen over the last while. So everyone needs to think, okay, what does that look like in my community or in my yard? What things that aren't tied down that I could move and put in a safe spot or secure? And what trees could come down or fall on my car or fall on the house? And I know it's just being cognizant of the wind direction that's coming, what's exposure there is in that wind direction. And I think what we're seeing is the officials are doing that all over. And just as a comment about we're strategically positioning people, particularly those in MB Power, the line crews that are going to be on the scene the minute there's a problem. But just don't take it for granted. We wouldn't be going through this if we didn't believe that the potential here is very real. And the devastation can be very real. So let's not just hope for the best. I guess always hope for the best, but let's not count on it. Let's just expect the worst and do whatever we can to mitigate.
Thank you. Vicky Hogarth, CHCO-TV.
Thank you, Bruce. Given that coastal Charlotte County will be getting apparently the brunt of the storm, can you tell us a little bit about what additional resources you're sending to this area in particular, and also if Grand Manan, which is obviously quite remote, will be included in those resources?
From an ME Power perspective, I don't have the exact numbers, but we're actually sending additional crews to all of those areas in the southern part of the province, as well as Moncton, Bouctouche, and to the Premier's point, there's a number of areas that are obviously in that track. Grand Manan is definitely included in that as well.
Ms. Hogarth, do you have a quick follow-up?
I do. I'm wondering if the meteorologist can provide an overview on what we can expect here in coastal Charlotte County over the next 24 hours, even into Sunday, and if there will be any more serious things due to the schedule of the tide.
Yes, for the Grand Manan area, Charlotte County, we are anticipating the rain to develop tonight, and it will come in hard and fast, as well as strong winds will be associated with that rain. We are expecting those northeasterly winds to come in as well all day tomorrow, and then we will see a slow improvement overnight, and then into Sunday morning, we should see that wind shift around back to the westerly on the backside of Lee. And in terms of with the waves and possible storm surge and associated with the tide, we are monitoring. We do know that high tide is around 2 a.m., between 1 and 2 a.m. overnight. And that right now doesn't quite correspond with the arrival of Lee, which is expected to be tomorrow afternoon. So there's a little bit of offset there. So that's kind of helping in the height of the tides in that area. But we are monitoring, again, any sort of timing. If it decides to be a little bit delayed, we are monitoring the tides and associated surge with the Lee. That being said, right now we still only can see high waves in the area and not surge. And just the difference between the two is waves, they go in and they come out. A surge would just be a large wave. The water level comes up and it won't come down. So we aren't seeing that with this particular system in Lee, especially in the Grand Manan area.
Thank you. Natalie Sturgeon with Global TV. Steve McKinley with the Toronto Star. Hannah Rotherham with CBC. Ms. Rotherham?
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that. For people that live along the coastline, what should their course of action be in the event of coastal erosion?
Yes, Miss, thank you very much. There's really nothing that people can do prior or during an event like this, but post-event, if they've noticed any kind of erosion, especially that which threatens the safety of themselves or the community, they can report that up through to us. We have recovery services that are available that can help, and safety inspectors who can respond to that. So yes, it's just a matter of making sure that if anything is noted, to please report it to MBEMO so we can assist.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms.
And
Rutter?
for my follow-up, will most of the guidance for Hurricane Lee be coming from the provincial EMO, or will it be split between local EMOs, just in terms of where people should be focusing on in the event of needing to conserve their phone data?
Oh yes, that's another great question. We've created a one-page for the government of New Brunswick, and you can achieve that by going through MBEMO. The link is also available through our EM partners locally. So I would encourage people to visit the sites now, and that way they can identify that web page, and then they can use that as their primary source of information.
Thank you. Justin Dupuis avec Radio-Canada.
No question. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Canadian Press.
My first question is Mike Tutton here at the Canadian Press. So if how concerned are you, this is for the EMO, I think, about coastal flooding due to tidal surge, whether it be in Charlotte County or particularly as it gets right up the bay into, of course, Sackville area, where we have vulnerable dikes?
Yes, thank you. Tidal surge is always a concern for an event like this, but based upon the current predictions that we're seeing, I do not believe that we have a significant threat like we would have had with Fiona and the likes at that level of a storm. So again, Mother Nature has a vote in this, and we would have to just see how it unfolds. But at this point right now, I don't see any difference in our approach, whether it's a Category 1 or a post-tropical storm. The main thing is for people to be prepared to deal with whatever situation evolves from the event.
Mr. Tutton, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you. For the Premier, there are probably according to the CRTC, about 15,000 New Brunswickers that don't have adequate cell phone service at this time. And of course, people driving through areas that perhaps can't get emergency alerts. Do you share with Tim Houston deep concern, a concern about this, and as we head into a storm like this?
Yes, certainly. It is a concern. And I think part of us, in terms of changing our overall structure of governance across the province in relation to the districts, it was to have a better handle on where people lived and have a better local understanding of how to connect with them. And that may mean driving to their home or making connection. We found in previous events, one of these issues where we didn't know the conditions that people had because we didn't have good access or we didn't have good information about where they were. So there is that concern, and cell phone coverage is a problem. We are working with our providers. I know there's certainly some major infrastructure programs that are in place that both the major providers are working towards, and we're pursuing timelines and looking at the coverage across this province. I mean, because we're seeing that coverage and cell phone service doesn't only happen in rural areas. We're seeing it right along our main highways, where we're having drop calls that are significant. And it seems to be even a little worse than it was. So I'm not sure what's happening, but I assure you that we will get to the bottom of it.
Thank you. We're now going to turn, we know we have some other questions related to other subjects, so we're going to turn to Jacques Poitras with CBC.
Question to follow?
A quick follow. Very quick.
Premier, can you just tell us, I guess, about the decision you announced this morning and what clicked in your mind to make the decision now or say it now?
So as Bruce mentioned at the beginning of this, I don't want to lose focus on this event that's coming forward, and I don't want to make this about anything more than the situation. I've had a number of discussions with individuals over the past week, certainly prior to this event materializing and coming forward. The decision point sent out this morning was the fact that because of the many discussions I've had, it would become a known fact at some point and likely over the weekend. And so let's just put it out there and be done with it. There's been a lot of back and forth about whether I would make a decision to stay or not. So it was to just end that debate before it became a story without my confirmation.
Yes, and I don't mean to take the focus off the hurricane, but we were told we had to ask the questions at this event, so.
But you don't
so
have to
that's
ask
why I'm
many.
asking.
Right? We'll have all kinds of time to talk after this event's over. So that's where I want to kind of stay.
Sure, but just quickly, your announcement didn't mention the date of the next election. When will the date of the next election be?
Well,
Plans?
certainly the only date that's confirmed at this point is the one in October of next fall. But we all know of kind of the situation that currently exists within the legislature and within our government. So obviously that remains a big concern.
Alex Villeneuve, Radio-Canada.
Could I please have the mic? Could I ask some questions in French? So do you think that you're still the right person to convince Francophones to vote for you during the next elections if you decide to run?
Certainly, I hope that we will see candidates from all over the province be the right candidates for their region. And I would say that in doing so, every candidate anywhere needs to look at the results and the success of many of the projects that we've put in place, the growth of the province and how it's moving forward and how it's doing that everywhere. And also how we've represented the entire province and where we have focused on improvements. So yeah, I'm quite confident that candidates that are interested in the best interest of how we move our province forward will certainly be willing and able to participate in an election to be part of this continued success of New Brunswick.
But I would like to hear what you have to say about Francophone voters. They didn't vote for you during the last two elections and during the by-elections last winter, so do you still think you're the right leader to get these voters?
Well, I think we've seen divisions in our province, north and south, for some time now. And if you go back in the history of New Brunswick, you'll see a continuation of that for generations. And it's unfortunate because it seems that although our interests should be collectively aligned on what's best for the province and how we move forward, there's always been a political division. And I would say in many cases it's fostered politically, which is unfortunate. So my goal is to continue to represent New Brunswickers across the entire province, and hopefully, that certainly will be seen for the reality that it is.
Adam Harris, Brunswick News.
Thank you, Bruce. Premier Higgs, congrats on your decision today to lead your party into the next election. On that, where are you with the 6 so-called rebels that voted with the opposition on Policy 713? Do you hope any of them reoffer under your banner, and would you sign their nomination papers if they did?
Well, I think that all I can say to that is some of them have obviously already made that decision. They did that prior to me ever being declaring my continuing as leader. So, it remains to be seen where we go from there. But I think it was pretty clear that several have made that decision.
Quick follow.
Yeah, and on another subject, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced the removal of the GST on new rental construction yesterday. Ontario, BC, Newfoundland and Labrador, they've all announced they'll eliminate the provincial tax on new rental construction. I wondered if you're interested in that, if you'll remove the tax on those new construction builds.
Well, as I think you like would expect. I'm not one that jumps out to the latest declaration from the federal government. I like to understand the details behind what they're proposing, and I also like to understand the implication on the Canadian taxpayer and particularly the New Brunswick taxpayer. So I want to get more details on what is being proposed. It's got to be more than a headline. It's got to be some substance. We have changed the tax policy on properties and new builds in relation to apartments and such to kind of be progress taxation, which allows them to build and not be paying the full taxes until they've actually got occupancy. We've already looked at that. Our housing initiative that we put in place will evaluate the federal proposal based on the housing plans that we have, and we'll see where it fits and if it fits. And at that point, make a decision if it makes sense.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you very much. That concludes today's update. Voilà la fin de notre mise à jour. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Bonne fin de semaine.
If you joined this conference late, you might be surprised to find out that it was actually an update on Hurricane Lee. The second half of the conference ended up being about Premier Blaine Higgs' political future. Obviously, this morning, for those of you who follow on Facebook, he did announce that he will be reoffering. The next election at this point in time is planned for October 2024. So a lot of questions about his future. But again, the first half of the conference, if you joined late, I would suggest going back to watch it just to get an overview of their plans for Hurricane Lee. Obviously, their concern is coastal Charlotte County and this part of the world where we will be likely feeling the most extreme parts of the storm right here. 120 km/h winds, 120 milliliters of rain. We are guessing, or they are projecting at this point in time, and potentially 4 to 6 meter waves. So a lot to think about, a lot to prepare for, and there will be more resources from NB Power and EMO in this part of the world as we prepare for what is to come within the next 24 hours. If there is another update tomorrow, I will post on Facebook as well as put it on the crawl on our television channel to let you know if we will be having an update from the province. If you live in this part of the world, please refer to my Facebook page or watch the TV channel to see an interview we did with Brad Henderson, the mayor of the town of St. Andrews, just a couple hours ago to give you an update of what's happening on the municipal level and how communities, especially St. Andrews, because it is from Mayor Henderson's perspective, are preparing for the storm right here along the coast in rural New Brunswick. I'm Vicki Hogarth, and thank you for watching with us.
You coming by to see us.
We're here in St. Stephen finding out why people like to shop local.
Five Kings is really nice, and sometimes I get Chinese food from the little Chinese food place there.
So it's good to support friends and family and neighbors. Everything I need I can get right here in St. Stephen. It's great to support the local economy.
Everybody says hello, whether they know you or not.